Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GLORIO Chat, the best anime podcast on the internet. I have an important announcement to make on this episode.
Please, go ahead.
I'm changing the name of the GLORIO blog to just the letter G.
Okay. The most powerful letter, as we all know.
Yeah.
G-Stone.
It's something I've always been fascinated with, the letter G.
Yeah.
It's the letter in my last name, but that's a secret, I guess, so that I don't reveal publicly.
Whoa.
We're gonna make all the colors red.
No, it's got to be green. If it's
green?
the little, gotta raise the G-Stone.
Everything, baby.
I think it's got to be red for the rising sun of Japan, but
with Japan spelled with the G.
We're an anime blog, and what
I have an announcement to make too. This bit has gone on long enough.
Maybe we should have a verified thing where your comments show at the top. I don't know, man. I don't know. I didn't really workshop this joke beforehand.
Green check mark.
Anyway,
moving away from our current techno nightmare dystopia.
Yeah, we're here to talk about some anime. We are already deep
in summer,
deep into the summer 2023 season.
Yep.
We've passed
Sinking in.
We've passed all our 3-episode tests. And
I would not necessarily use "past" as the word here.
I mean, the amount of time has physically passed.
Approximately 3 weeks have occurred since
let's say PAST rather than PASSED.
Yes, exactly. PST, right, exactly. And I think we have a good idea of what we're dealing with here. There's a couple shows I think I'm still watching, but I don't know. It's getting a little dicey here.
High and dry.
But
it is the summer.
We do have, I think, a lot of things to talk about this episode. So
yeah,
let's get into it. To introduce everyone, I'm Jel. I'm joined by Aru.
I'm still here. I'm not dead yet.
You're not dead. I don't know how our comrade G is doing at the moment, who was not able to make it on this episode, but we'll see if he's still alive.
Dead.
Ganbare G, yes, we'll see if he's still alive next time. But we're a 3-man this week with Zig.
Hey ho, it's me, the default option. Hiya.
The Ryu of the GLORIO Chat.
The Ryu of the GLORIO Chat.
I prefer to think of myself more as a Luke these days.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, is
he now baby?
Unbearable douchebag.
I am grinding my way through World Tour mode. I'm towards the end where the AI starts cheating and jumping with perfect frame timing to avoid my command grabs every time.
Yep.
They're going SNK boss on you.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I mean, the Street Fighter series has always had SNK bosses. Like, the final boss of Street Fighter...
Not more so that Capcom versus SNK.
I mean, like, the final boss of Street Fighter 3 can literally bring himself back to life.
That's right. Fuck that guy. Is that Urian?
Yeah.
Gil. They look the same.
Yes, no, that's the point.
Okay, yeah.
Well...
I get them mixed up.
Good news, guys, because the new Grand Blue Fantasy Versus Rising is going to be adding... quote-unquote modern controls.
That completely uncontroversial addition. Modern controls.
Yes.
We can't get into this. We can't.
Yeah, we can't, but yes. Anyway. Let's talk about well, I was going to say let's talk about anime, but we're actually
let's talk about people punching and kicking each other.
We're going to start since I have you both here, and I think this came out since last episode. You guys saw this, I think?
So it came out digitally in July. I did see it in theaters at the end of May when I had the one night showing.
And it came out in April in Japan. Or was it? It was late March or early April in Japan.
Okay.
In theaters,
We're talking about Shin Kamen Rider.
Hideki Anno's Shin Kamen Rider.
The fourth in the Shin series.
Is it the fourth?
There's Shin Evangelion, Shin Godzilla, Shin Ultraman, and Shin Kamen Rider.
You know, part of the Shin Japan Heroes franchise?
Yeah.
Wavering Hand. Okay, that promo they made where they all got tied into a Toku suit was pretty good, though.
Yes, that was pretty good.
Well, this is the third live action movie with Hideaki Anno revisiting his childhood here, right? But
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. What'd you guys think?
Dick, you're the
The
writer head
guy
around here, and I've seen it. So
it's a really interesting movie. I think it's pretty bad.
Okay.
But in kind of an interest, like I think the thing about this movie is that it is way more. The thing I said to Iro after we had seen it again, or after he had seen it again, but after we had seen it for the first time, is that this is not really a movie about Kamen Rider. This is a movie about Hideki Anno's memories of Kamen Rider, if that makes sense. Like,
Okay.
it's more a movie about like his idealized version of that show. And I think an important ground point is that while Kamen Rider is like a classic piece of tokusatsu, history, one of the most important Japanese TV shows in history, all of that kind of thing. Original Kamen Rider is kind of like original Doctor Who. There's some interesting ideas there, but also there's a lot of very obvious, like extremely cheap dudes in suits being punched a lot until they fall off cliffs. And by fall off cliffs, I mean they throw a dummy off them.
Yeah,
they had no budget and no time when filming
Yes.
that shit.
Isn't original Doctor Who like one step above like a high school play kind of
yes.
production values?
Yeah, but also there were not many like sci-fi shows happening in 1963, and especially not on a BBC budget. But the point is that like original Kamen Rider, although like these days it is revered as like a classic, the original Henshin hero, began the Kaijin rage and all that, at heart it's kind of like a cheap grindhousey TV production, if that
For
makes
kids.
sense. For kids, yeah, like it is a show to sell toys. It always has been. This is not that at all. This is like a like super duper serious, like 100% straight faced serious drama
Except
film.
then it still has like scorpion ladies, like bunny suit mooks with riot shields.
Yeah, like it's the thing that strikes me about this movie is that it is such an imperfect marriage between the Anno parts, which are like the bits where it's like a serious meditation on like the relationship between people, and the bit where the villain's plan is literally just human instrumentality again, and like the bits where a grasshopper dude on a motorbike is kicking monsters until they turn into bubble bath foam. Like it's it's really weird. It like and there's, I think that tension between the two halves is the fascinating part of the film.
Yeah, it's the thing where like we are adults, and so when we watch tokusatsu, we value the camp factor to a certain extent. But like if you're a child watching Kamen Rider, you're not capable of like recognizing the that it's silly. Like you kind of just take it at face value.
I'd push back on that. I think that you perhaps do not recognize the camp value in the sense of, oh, this is kind of like stylistically bad.
That is what I meant.
Right. But yeah. I think that children appreciate the kind of goofy, like the kind of goofy seriousness of it. The fact that everybody is playing these very silly things straight. I do think that is a side that appeals to children as well, And this movie, it's just not a lot of fun. It's there's never any real sense that things are exciting or adventurous, or that you care about what's going to happen to the characters. It's just kind of underwhelming, honestly. That was my feeling, at least. I think that the action parts are not very good. There's one major scene which is where like Rider 1 and Rider 2 battle like a whole bunch of clone Kamen Riders in a construction tunnel that is just absolutely awful. Like, it's dark, you can't tell what's going on, everybody is made of terrible CGI, and it's one of the most inept action scenes I've seen in a while. And like, even the regular we are punching and kicking these dudes who like have scorpion masks or spider masks on their face, you know, like, there's a bunch of blood, but the fights feel super weightless, and there's not really any impressive choreography or cool stunts or anything like that, you know. And I think on some level that's a shallow complaint, but on another level, you know, I watch these things to have fun, and this movie is not a lot of fun.
Yeah, I feel like that would be, to me, that for something like this, that would be the strongest appeal. Is like, is it going to at least look cool, right? Like, if you're,
some of it looks cool, I think. Like,
yeah, I mean,
that's like, that's a matter of like prop design rather than the blocking of the fights is cool.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of striking visuals in this movie, and like, if you've seen Shin Godzilla or Shin Ultraman, there's a lot of that same style of like some very bizarre camera angles, some like highly aggressive editing, lots of hard cuts, and kind of you know, just kind of like strongly lit scenes, but yeah, there's no really like get up and punch the air factor. And I think, to me at least, I think like the more base parts of Kamen Rider are an important part of the appeal. You know, I want to see a dude like jump off of things and kick things really hard, and there's a few times where that happens, but it's never presented with the kind of verve or panache that I want from something like this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Iro, I think you're broadly a little bit more supportive of the film.
Yeah, you know, I have had a little more time to like think about it.
Of course,
right?
Yeah.
But like, this just I'd sort of thinking about it in the sense of what Anno has been up to lately, especially in comparison to like Shin Ultraman and Shin Godzilla. Because when I think about Shin Godzilla, it's like I'm not saying the original Godzilla, but my understanding is that Shin Godzilla takes a lot from that.
Yes.
Like, thematically, it's almost more of a disaster movie than a monster movie.
I mean,
right.
I think that the best
it's all about like how the government is responding to a crisis. Right.
I mean, like, famously, the original Godzilla is a none too subtle allegory for atomic bombing. But,
right.
I think that the best Godzilla films present him as like an unstoppable force of nature.
And so Shin just doing that, like, now, or, you know, contemporarily, like, kind of fits, because also Godzilla has not necessarily been that for many years, right? Like, as pointedly.
I mean, are you saying that there's not the same sort of political appeal as throwing CGI American Godzilla into the Sydney Opera House while Sum 41 plays? Are you saying that it's not deep and cutting commentary?
Godzilla. The point is, Godzilla has been many things over the years,
right? And so, in context of Shin Godzilla, it being just original Godzilla but modern, kind of works. But then when it's Shin Ultraman or Shin Kamen, Shin Ultraman and Shin Kamen sort of have the same problem, I think, where Anno wants it to be like the original thing. And maybe we can take some bits and pieces from the newer stuff and put those in, but it needs to be the same as the original.
Right,
man.
yeah. I like, structurally, this movie is a lot like Shin Ultraman, which is to say it is very obviously a bunch of television episodes edited together. Like, I think I liked Shin Ultraman more because I think that, you know, Ultraman is less, for want of a better word, down and dirty, so to speak. Like, the fights have always been a bit more detached because of the growing giant thing, you know. And
Ultraman is still kind of about how this task force is responding to this situation,
right?
Even as the movie progresses, like, it becomes more about Ultraman's interiority. It still kind of has that bit in it, which sort of connects it to Shin, like, mentally it helps me connect it as like a follow-up to Shin Godzilla.
And I think as well, the structure of the original Ultraman show is is better. It has the famous ending, have you become fond of these humans, Ultraman, and all that stuff. And I think that better fits the structure of a film. And I think the diversions are more interesting and goofier and quirkier in Ultraman as well.
And so in Shin Kamen Rider, it just feels like Anno's fan film of what he imagines the original Kamen Rider,
right? And also like the thing is like the original Kamen Rider has been rebooted and parodied and homaged and remade so many times already. Like half the shows in the Kamen Rider series are, spins on the original Kamen Rider. Like they did a full movie reboot about 15 years ago in Kamen Rider the First. This isn't even the first film called Shin Kamen Rider.
Excuse me, that's called Shin Kamen Rider Prologue.
Yeah, because it's the prologue to this film. They're in direct continuity.
Yeah, definitely.
No,
they're definitely they're not related. But yeah, so I don't know what I thought I expected from Shin Kamen Rider, other than Anno's weird fan film about the original Kamen Rider, and I almost feel silly having expected to be something like anything more than that, because it's like, as you've brought up multiple times, like, well, we've talked about it, like, what is this bringing to the franchise? I don't know. It's just kind of Anno wanted to make his homage to original Kamen Rider.
Yeah.
And that feels a little superfluous, maybe.
And I think, I think the film is grasping at the familiar Anno theme, which is, the connection between people and the difficulty of connecting people and like how to carry on somebody's will and that kind of thing, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Famous directors and famous creatives have house styles and house themes which they like to bring to their work, but it's just everything here feels so very cold and impersonal. I think the actors are good and they do the best with what they have, but they have like Anno has never been a terrific character writer. I think a lot of the better interpersonal stuff in Ava was helped by his very able co-writers on that show, And this show kind of has, and I know this is controversial because when I mentioned it before, you pushed back on this, but it kind of has the Tomino problem, which is where the characters speak like characters. They do not speak like human beings, if that makes sense. But whereas Tomino's work tends to make that into like a rather charming kind of weird quirk, here you just feel like these people are actors acting out roles, which of course they are, but it all feels very impersonal. You feel like you're looking at a chessboard from 1,000 miles. And
the thing is with Tomino is that like it pushes it so far that it loops back around to the kind of inane bullshit that actual people talk about.
Right? Yeah. Whereas here, like everybody is talking about,
stone face to talking about how they're going to paralyze your prana.
Yeah, they basically have the Force in this movie, and like,
so everyone just has mana, right? It's just magic. It's just chi.
And I think a major like problem with this movie is that the villains are incredibly ephemeral, because like
well, you see, because in original Kamen Rider there would simply be one villain an episode, and then we would move on.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, like, like in original Kamen Rider, for people who don't know, the big bad guys were Shocker, the evil organization, who were basically kind of like pirate ninja Nazis.
They were literally Nazis.
They were occasionally literal Nazis, yes, but I mean, like they were evil because they were evil and they wanted world domination and stuff like that. And I can see how you like that is a fairly shallow motivation, obviously, and you would want to update that. And I think there's some germs, the idea here that like they reinvented Shocker as an all-loving organization who wants to pursue mankind's happiness.
Yeah.
But it just kind of goes nowhere, like the leader of Shocker is an AI who never appears on screen. Like the actual guy they fight is main girl's brother, except we only learn that like 2/3 of the way through the movie, and there's just no weight at all to like the battle between these, you don't feel that there is ideology behind this fight. They feel like they're going through the motions, and that's really disappointing. Like sometimes you just want to see a dude kick some Nazis.
Yeah, I have not seen any of these movies, but
sure,
the concept always reminded me of years ago when they did the Tatsunoko anime remakes.
Yeah.
That were like super
Castron Sins and Gatchaman Crowds and Yatterman Night.
Right. And they all, they were all kind of a lot more kind of serious, mature themed type of shows. Mm-hmm. But they did that by making these, wild reimaginations that kind of had almost nothing to do with the originals. But I guess, in comparison, like, maybe
this is like slavish.
We wouldn't want to. I guess I wouldn't expect that from a movie. I guess, like,
I mean, yeah, and I think that I think the previous Shin films, like Shin Godzilla, is a genuinely like keen, cutting satire on like Japanese bureaucracy and the kind of like the paralyzation of the Japanese governmental system and stuff like that.
Right.
Shin Ultraman is very much not that, but it is a loving, caring homage that still has some of that under the surface, and I think that there is more obvious affection in Shin Ultraman, and also it has an ensemble cast, which means that there is at least human characters who are easy to become attached to or gravitate to. And there's also just more fun, weird shit in Shin Ultraman, like that entire sequence where the lady member of the team is made massive and walks around as a giant lady for a bit as well, which is just super weird, and it only happens because if
you watch Shin Ultraman again, the boss of the task team is the actor who is Kamen Rider Black Sun.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, like like not to invoke the like hidden thing, but also like the other 50th anniversary project they did, Kamen Rider Black Sun, is like it is the very definition of a show of the like Garth Marenghi subtext is for cowards thing, but it's so much more interesting in terms of it says something.
I guess.
Yeah, and that also turned the like Gorgon party into like the happiness cult, right?
Right, yeah. But it was a much more in-depth, nuanced like treatment. And granted, it had more runtime, but like comparing the two, like Black Sun blows away Shin Kamen Rider.
And I guess that's probably more in line with like the old Tatsunoko ones, right? Where it's like but I don't know. I think I'm most disappointed by hearing you guys say, or Zig, you were saying like the fights and stuff weren't cool, and it's like I feel like that would be the main thing that would be appealing at this point.
I mean, it's very obvious, I think, that Anno is not really interested in the action, and I think that there's a lot of CG and it's mostly pretty bad. I think that like even the bit where they have like Kamen Rider 1 fight Kamen Rider 2 is almost entirely CG of them running along, jumping into the air, punching each other twice, falling back to the ground, running along, and it's just unbearably lame. Like it's so lame, especially like when you see the fights that like the TV show is putting on week by week. They're not always spectacular, but they're generally much better choreographed.
There are people punching each other.
Yeah, like and there's just no real attempt, like to me at least, and obviously I have no idea of knowing this is true, but Anno seems completely uninterested in the action parts of Kamen Rider, and I get it, but it is an action show.
That's kind of an important, component in all this.
Yeah, yes. and that's why I said, I opened by saying that it feels more like a remake of the Kamen Rider in Hideki Anno's imagination.
Right, the things that he remembered and were most important to him.
I think what he remembers was like this was a meaningful tale about like human connections and the fight against like evil and like
overcoming trauma, like
a work of like substance, and but but original Kamen Rider was not that, like it occasionally had things to say about stuff like fascism and transhumanism, but most of the time it was people in flares turning into bugmen and then like kicking the shit out of each other. It had an evil squid. One of the bad guys is called Professor Shinigami, for goodness sake. Like it's that kind of camp grindhouse thing, and this just feels so far removed from that.
Yeah.
Like it's he turned into an evil squid. He was called Ika Devil. Like, come on.
Yeah.
They dug up
that's pretty. That sounds.
They dug up Hitler's secret treasure, and it was Kamen Rider. Like, come on. Like,
what if we got Shin's Kaiketsu Zubat?
Now that would be worth watching.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So, what is the next Shin?
I don't fucking know. Hasn't he said like, I don't know what I'm doing next? And it's the first time I've felt this way my entire life.
I mean, like for the record, he's gone on record as saying that like he has plans in mind for all of those Shin movies, excluding Eva, of course, like for sequels to all of those movies. Yeah. But like Shin Godzilla 2 is definitely not happening because they like Toho are moving forward on a new project. Like Godzilla 1 or was it something?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I can't see him. I don't think he has the passion for like any other of the like tokusatsu boom shows, So unless somebody out there wants to make Shin Super Sentai, I think that might be done at some point.
Shin Go Ranger, like.
Yeah, and I mean, like, at that point, that's basically just that 2017 Power Rangers movie with Les Duncan in it.
Shin Super Sentai, where all the Rangers are just black.
Shin Spider-Man.
Yeah, I'd watch Shin Spider-Man. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The Toku Spider-Man, right?
Yeah. I mean, like, people I know who I respect have had a lot of fun with the movie. I think that there's definitely people who will love it, I personally didn't love it. And that's all I can say. I'm in the middle of writing a review. I'll try and get that out, but it's mostly going to say most what I've said here. I think that it's fascinating. It's a really interesting look. I suggest you watch it if you're a fan of Kamen Rider, and especially if you are interested in Hideki Anno, the person, the artist. But I don't think it's really a good time.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. It's Anno.
Yeah.
Shrug. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's bring things back over to anime. We had a couple of new shows to add to the list here that we didn't talk about last time, and we'll start with Ooku, The Inner Chambers, which actually I think it came out first, but it was on Netflix.
Yeah,
and they
Netflix, dumped all at once, as Netflix is wont to do.
Dropped everything, and it has a very intimidating 2-hour-long first episode.
That's an entire movie.
It's a movie. Yes, it is a prologue movie, basically.
It's totally still just... It's obviously just the episodes, because it's still paced like that.
Yeah.
And I could feel in my bones where
I was going to say, does it have like cliffhangers where a set of credits should obviously go? And then
kinda. I mean, the first episode, which is what I watched, did. But go ahead.
Yeah. So, I watched the whole thing, and
the whole show, or just the whole intro.
The whole intro. No, I didn't watch the whole show. No, I don't have time for that. But because the whole thing did drop on Netflix all at once. Thanks, Netflix. And of course, no one's talking about it. This is definitely an Oshinoko situation where you have your prologue movie that is setting up the actual show.
Yeah.
Which I did not watch episode 2, but I ran out of time, but I kind of previewed ahead, and so like the rest of the series appears to be like a flashback.
Oh, okay.
But the 2-hour movie is setting up the premise, which is we are I don't know the exact dates, eras, but sometime
in the Edo period.
In the Edo period of Japan, there is a plague that breaks out that kills most of the men. And as a result, the women basically have to take over society. And over the course of about 80 years, the women are now in charge. And they make up there's still men around, but they only make up like 25% of the population, and the world is run by women.
So what you're saying is this is a
or not the world, sorry, Japan. It does not.
It's a reverse. It's a reverse.
It appears to be. It appears to only be Japan, but Japan is isolated from the world. At
this point, it is during the isolation, so you can kind of get away with that, right?
Because there are so few men, that means every man has a crowd of ladies of all shapes and sizes throwing themselves at him, and there's wacky hijinks.
No, that is not the direction. Well, I mean, there are the practical aspects of that to a certain degree, but this is not a wacky comedy. This is a very
there are parts.
There's some wacky,
because you described that, and it's like they kind of got a little. Just the first episode kind of got into how like if you're poor, then and you want children, like you have to find a man who's
having a husband is a luxury because you can't. You would have to like buy one basically, or be able to afford one. Whereas most people, like, if they want to get pregnant, they basically go hire a guy, and So, I think, and just I guess to kind of finalize the premise here, the prologue movie is kind of about the present day, 80 years later, where we can see all the long-term effects of this. And it ends with the new shogun, who's a woman, of course, because the women are in charge, and she decides to try to get to the bottom of what happened, because apparently that has been hidden as to what happened 80 years ago, which, if I'm gonna like nitpick on world building, I feel like only 80 years is not enough for people to like totally forget that happened.
Oh, I don't know.
But
how long ago?
It ends literally with her talking to somebody who was still alive when it happened.
No.
So I'm like,
and just to clarify here, like, are less men, like male children, being born, or is it just all those men were wiped out?
They're not really clear on that. I'm assuming there's
I think the disease is still in like
okay, sure. Because I was going to say, like, in 80 years,
they're saying the disease. I think it's more the disease only affects like 75% of men or something. So there's still some that seem to be able to survive it or whatever. But,
sure. But the lack of men is an ongoing issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And apparently some of the population recovered, because they said at this stage it's about 75-25 is the number they gave. So, but based on what we find out in the episode, it seems like nobody knows what happened, unless, which, again, I would feel like if there's still people alive, that would be hard. But anyway, that's nitpicking. Point is, it appears the main series is going to be her going back to basically what happened, and specifically the history of the Ooku, which is like the shogun's harem of hot guys.
Yeah,
that like was formed.
The shogun's palace it's like a forbidden palace situation, right? It's like you have all the attendants in the inner palace are men, right?
Yes,
of various degrees and whatnot.
So the at one point the shogun, collected a group of 3,000 of the hottest men in Japan as a display of power to keep for herself at the palace, and they kind of over the course of the 80 years they formed their own political intrigues and backstabbing and
so they were
social hierarchy.
Yeah,
basically. And that's the titular Ooku, the inner chambers, is basically that aspect of it. So the movie ends with her reading the secret history of the Ooku, which is what the real rest of the series, I believe, is going to be about, the founding of the Ooku, basically. And okay, that out of the way, there's a lot going on here.
Yes,
I think, at least in the movie, this may be a more fascinating world building experiment more than an actual interesting series.
Yeah.
Because they do not do the thing which would make this terrible, where it's just like, oh, well, we're just going to swap the men and the women, and it's going to be exactly the same, except the women are the ones oppressing the men, whatever.
It seems like there was some actual thought put into the specificity of the premise.
Like what would that look like? What there would still be what things would change, what things would remain the same, and that is sort of like a thought exercise is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think the choice to start with kind of a quote unquote real example of what that might look like for somebody with the guy that we're introduced to in the movie, who is not relevant by the end of this, but kind of giving you that point of view of to kind of see the inner workings of things, like I said, things that changed and didn't. It was pretty cool, and I appreciate the amount of thought that went into that in kind of mapping out what this kind of thing would look like. And that said, it's dry as a bone, man. There's there is
it doesn't look good.
Yeah. It looks
the problem with all of these kind of court or political intrigue dramas is that it's so easy for it to devolve into just here is a seed of two people talking, now here is a seed of two people talking, now over and over and over.
And unlike something like say the Heike story, which is probably the nearest correlation I could think of, that has an interesting visual style, and the pacing of that was generally a lot snappier than what was going on here. But I don't know, once I kind of started getting past the initial, once I was about halfway through the movie, I think it was kind of building up enough for me where there's enough intrigue going on. There's the one guy's kind of manipulating it so that the head of the Ooku is trying to manipulate it, so our main character for the prologue becomes the first kind of concubine guy or whatever, but
pushing him to a higher position.
But he doesn't know that traditionally the first concubine is assassinated after consummating his relationship with the shogun, and it's really just maneuvering it to get him out of the way so that his choice can be the number one guy. And there's a lot of that kind of thing going on, and I found it very interesting once it got going, and a lot of it was kind of if you read the things that actually happened in history, it felt like they were kind of projecting that based on real events or whatever, even though they were obviously it's not real, but and yeah, I think my problem is going to be kind of similar to Oshi no Ko, where by the end I might be more interested in what was happening with the new shogun than what's going to be happening in the actual the actual series. The new shogun walks in and she's problematic girl bossing her way through everything. And
I'm
now I see where your interest lies.
All right, well, let's see where this is going, and then I think it's going back to well, all right, I'm gonna be fair, because I didn't actually watch episode 2, so I'm not gonna make any judgment on what happens for the body of the series, but I'm all right, well, I'm actually interested by the end of this movie of what's happening, and now we're just gonna go back to a completely different plot line now. I don't know, but
so if it does just go back, if it's for example, if the flashback's 1 or 2 episodes and then it goes back to what's happening in the present.
I was skimming through. I don't think it goes back. I think this is this is the other thing. If we're going to compare to
Rakugo.
Yeah, Shogen Rakugo Shinju.
Which also had a season-long flashback.
It had, yes. So that also had, it was only a 2-episode beginning that was really kind of dry and boring.
Uh-huh.
And and I will.
Yeah, I remember. I didn't watch.
Yeah, I'll remind everyone we watched the first episode and just dropped it until Artemis said this show is really good. You guys need to watch it.
Yeah, and then
and
content of the flashback is in fact quite engaging. Yeah.
Yes, past the boring prologue, the rest of the series was extremely good. So maybe so like I said, I'll pass judgment until I actually see it. But I don't know. It's definitely got a lot of potential, and I think they did well with the premise, and it's just going to depend on what we do with the meat of the story, I guess. I know G. I don't remember how high G was on this, but he did have this kind of flag.
I think it was a thing he read many years ago, I think.
Yeah, the original manga. So
yeah,
I think it has potential. I will definitely watch episode 2.
Yeah. All right. I mean, if you've got some good ideas, that's a pretty solid base to kick off on, right? Like,
yeah.
I guess it's just whether they can focus on the interesting things or not.
Yeah. So it's just I wish it had some kind of like, I don't know, the either stylistic flourish or better directing of Heika's story, or I don't know, like because like Heika's story was covering a lot of similar content, but like I felt like they picked like the perfect little slivers for you to kind of jump in and experience, and then get out and move on to the next thing.
I think the Heika story was also a story that was more broadly focused on characters and emotions than necessarily kind of like the political drama was compelling, but it was also sometimes a backdrop to like the human stories.
Yeah,
as well.
And it's not like this is devoid of like I said, they chose to pick like one guy to focus on in the prologue movie, so you could see the human element of how this was affecting people, right? So there's some of that in there. It's just it was so like dryly presented.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the thing about the Heika story is that it is so well balanced, right? It balances those things and ties its personal themes of like hubris and tragedy into the big picture stuff.
And that's where like the good directing, knowing what to cut, what to add.
Also, the Heika story was made by one of the most acclaimed anime directors currently working with one of the most famous studios currently working, so
I'm not going to say it's an unfair comparison, but yes, that does help your chances. So, I'll give it a shot for a little bit more, and see how it goes. Maybe we'll get out of this season.
What about Dark Gathering?
Something good. Okay, yeah. So the other new show that I watched, and I think you guys watched as well, although Iro apparently made such an impression, Iro, that you didn't remember it. I
had to be reminded what this was.
Dark Gathering. This was... I watched it because I heard some people liked it, and it was like a comedy or something. And
that might be pushing it a bit, but...
It was... okay, I guess.
So, like, let me try to recall the premise of the show.
What is your remembrance of this?
There's a guy who has spiritual sensitivity and is possibly cursed. He can sense spirits. He's been hounded by the supernatural his whole life and wants to distance himself from all that. But he gets called up by his childhood friend, and his childhood friend needs his help because her cousin or relative is a little girl who is possessed by the supernatural or something like that.
Literally has skulls in her eyes.
She's a little girl who has skull symbols in her eyes. They are literally shaped that way. It's not stylistic.
Yeah.
They say that she literally has skull pupils.
Yeah, they mention it in the show in universe.
So he goes along with their wacky adventures, and she's a goofy, like, little creepy kid who likes scary things and also is like capturing apparitions and making them kill each other so she can get the coolest, strongest apparition. And so they're all terrified of her.
it seems vaguely Gegege no Kitaro-ish, but like perhaps with a bit more 90s edge than that, and a bit more 90s other stuff as well.
Yeah, I would say like the tone of it is mostly kind of silly, but then they try to inject these like actual horror moments into there.
It feels very muddled.
Well, the creepy dolls and
there's also occasionally like
weirdly horny joke.
Yeah, weirdly horny, and also like we're clearly meant to like the little girl is clearly meant to be super moe, and it feels like a mess.
Yeah.
And I didn't really come away from it with like any sort of impression that there was one overriding idea or sort of hook to the show, which a show doesn't necessarily need, but it would help quite a bit.
Yeah, I think the only parts I enjoyed when they were like running away Scooby-Doo style from
yeah. I mean, it doesn't help that the mystery of this first episode is a haunted phone box, which is just like pretty lame, let's be honest.
Yeah, there wasn't really a lot that actually happened. She just like
This reminded me a bit of Inspector, which has a similar sort of we are supernatural detectives premise, but has a little more going on the character side, even if it's also weirdly horny in certain ways.
I mean, I think I liked Inspector more because it had higher production values, and like at least it has a female lead that is mostly able to talk shit back to our main protagonist. Whereas here it's like, little baby girl who is mysterious.
And just like big boob childhood friend who just hangs out.
And to be clear, like everything other than like, the main character, the little girl with the skull eyes, everything else looks so generic. It looks like it was taken out of like a mid-90s visual novel.
Then she's got like her like purple hoodie and like the skull eyes. It looks like a gotcha game character or something.
It's actually pretty badly clashing because like she is so obviously designed and everything else is so obviously generic that it feels like somebody sort of, which might be deliberate, but I think it's just bad art direction, to be honest. It's so completely forgettable. I don't blame Iro at all for forgetting about it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to just live with my other comedies this season, I guess. Unfortunately. All right. Well, we can be done with that then.
I guess.
let's.
Speaking of supernatural.
Yeah,
manga adaptations, I don't know. Jujutsu Kaisen is still
speaking of whole season-long flashbacks.
I know, right?
We're just combining the last two shows.
Here. Yeah, it's still flashback zone, right? Of Jujutsu Kaisen, and I don't know. It looks great visually. The fights are visually striking and cool looking, but as we've said, what did we leave off? Like 2 episodes in, and now we're 4 episodes in.
Yeah.
Something along those lines. It's, as we were saying, like, it's a flashback. Go ahead.
What is the actual, like, plot at this point? Is it just what's his name in school, like in his school days or something? The mentor character Gojo is in school, and his buddy is a dude who clearly looks like the villain, big bad villain from season 1, who has not confronted the heroes directly yet, but has been shepherding the other villains. Right. And they are working together in school, and their job is to protect this other schoolgirl who is the destined like vessel of the entity that basically sits in the basement of the school and powers all of the. And we pretty much know she's gonna die, right?
She dies.
Yeah,
she already died.
Oh, she already died. Okay.
Yeah, in a really hackneyed. I shouldn't. I'm being mean. I'm sure people thought this was very affecting, but they bring her to the like spot where she's supposed to fuse into this system or whatever, and then they go. They're like, you don't really have to do this. I think we're strong enough to not need to do this. Don't you just want to live your life teen girl, and she breaks down crying, and you get the slow music, and then she just gets shot in the head, right? In the most predictable possible way. It's one of those things where I'm like, this sequence is beginning, and I'm like, she's about to get absolutely just about to get shot.
Yeah.
And then G was like, yeah, and then boom, right?
Just again, like, yep, Jujutsu Kaisen not known for its creativity. But yes.
Right. It's just, I don't care what's happening. It looks very nice, but I don't care about the characters.
That's the tricky thing about like prequels or flashbacks, right? Because you know where they're going to end up, you generally have to, like, the appeal in a flashback is generally tragedy or you know, irony or something, because you know where
I want to see, like, I come to prequel because I want the pathos of how this character got where they are. Except, like, I didn't care about this character in the present, and so how they got where they are doesn't matter.
And it sounds like he's not really any different, right? He's still the kind of the same guy, right?
This, like shithead, right? This cocky, smarmy dude. He fights this villain who is related to several of the main characters in the present. Whose whole deal is he's got no magic but is super strong.
Of course.
And, like, he quote-unquote kills Gojo, and then Gojo, you know, revives himself the next episode.
Right,
and it's just...
Yeah.
Why is this placed here?
Yeah. So,
you know?
I don't want to totally...
If I can just speculate for a second, the fact that we've got this combined with that prequel movie as well kind of feels like the author was like, oh shit, this is popular, stall.
Yeah. Well,
the thing about the prequel movie is that was based on the, like, pilot volume.
Sure.
That, you know, like, happened but was not part of the main story. So, like, that I can, like, understand as we took this semi-self-contained thing and made it into a movie.
Right, which is itself a semi-self-contained thing.
Yeah, and so far, at least, the events of that movie have not been at all relevant to the main story.
Yeah, and as we said last time, Gojo is, like, by far the most popular character.
I cannot understand why, because...
Is he just Bakugo again?
No, he's like...
He's like... No, I meant in terms of being, like, an inexplicably popular character.
I guess.
No, well, I understand both of them, but
right.
He is different because he's not quite as insufferable. He's in the main show. He's like more of like their mentor character, right?
Yeah, it's like their teacher.
He's like their teacher, but I don't know. Yeah, I mean, not to rehash things that we said last time, but
it's all the same problems as last time.
I think specifically in the first full season, they did a good job of making you care about the lovable dirtbag cast, and by like the season finale at the end when God, what's the main kid's name? Yuji. When Yuji and Nobara have their big fight at the end,
right? Yeah,
and you're like, all right, we got our crew together. We have galvanized the team. We're ready for more fun adventures.
Here's this flashback
in the land of Jujutsu Kaisen, and then season 2 hits, and you're like, here's a big flashback. That's what's killing me. It's like the timing, especially, is like I feel like we just
got like the squad, right?
Yeah, we just got the story started with the main cast, and now we're putting all that on hold. So that's if there's one main thing that bugs me about all of it, I think that's
there was one pretty good joke in episode 3, I think, because pre-opening they're like, oh man, all these assassins are after us to try and kill her. This is going to be a real problem that this organization's after us. It's like, it's very serious, and they're like, I guess we're going to have to try and take the fight to them. And then at the end of the opening, we come back in, and they're just relaxing on the beach because they just took care of it off screen. It was not a problem.
Well, that's the other thing. Gojo is basically One Punch Man, right? Like, he's invincible. Like, I've never seen him even like close to challenged by anything, right? So like,
but just the framing of that joke, I thought was.
But yes, that's as a one-off joke. That's hilarious. But in general, like, there's no like drama or tension if Gojo's fighting someone because he's just so powerful.
And,
also, we know he's going to survive. So,
right,
yes,
and
on top
it doesn't
of that.
seem to be in like any particularly bad shape in the present. Is a thing. So, like when to compare this to other big flashback arcs in major shonen manga from Shonen Jump, for example, Naruto gets the whole Kakashi Gaiden arc, which A, is not very long, and B, like, Kakashi has this open mystery of where did he get his Sharingan and what happened to his team. So seeing that firsthand, like, has some pathos, right? And then, like, Bleach also has all the Visored characters who got exiled somehow, and something happened that infected them all with hollow virus or whatever. And so the flashback there, which was way too fucking long, but did have
Bleach, baby.
Yes, but did have that like, oh, this is how we got here thing that it did answer.
Right. I mean, I guess the thing I would ask is, do you feel that this flashback so far has taught you anything about Gojo as a character, or like led you to understand anything about why he is the way he is?
Him, no. A couple of the other characters, maybe. Right.
Sure. Okay. So, yeah. I mean, maybe not a complete loss, but I feel like
it's just a bizarrely paced to have this here. I think.
Yeah. And to have it be so long, right?
Yeah, I mean, all of the examples you cited came like hundreds of chapters into those like long-running series.
Yeah.
Here, like the characters don't have enough of a mystery around them to justify a flashback. Like, we barely know them.
Right. Exactly. It's like,
if you wanted to like deliver this in like a 1 episode or half an episode flashback or something, maybe. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well.
Yeah. Speaking of things that should have had flashbacks instead of how they're
or perhaps dragging out things longer than
they did. Okay. Undergirl Murder Farce, right? Is what we're talking about.
Yeah, I do want to clarify on Crunchyroll. It is officially Undead Murder Farce. Undead they took the girl out of the title on Crunchyroll.
So this, I get the feeling that episodes 2, 3, and 4 they wanted to do an Oshinoko.
They wanted to make that a full movie,
and then put episode 1 after, because that's like the only way this place makes sense to me. Because I didn't need to. By the end of episode 4, I'm like, why did I need to see episode 1?
And also in the fight that episode 4 basically ends on, like, Oni Dude is dropping a load of cryptic hints as to he and my girl's background, except that we know that background because we saw it and it was all laid out in the first episode.
Exactly.
So, as Iro says, it kind of feels like that this is...
Even just in general, I don't feel like this needed to be 4 episodes.
No, it's an absurdly padded out story.
They could have trimmed this down to like...
It could have been a 2-episode mystery.
This could have been a 1 episode if you really rushed it.
You could have cut the prologue episode, like you said, Iro.
Yes.
And trimmed the remaining 3 episodes down to 2. And I think that would have tightened things up. I would have been
more interested. Yes. Now that said, I'm broadly into what's being sold to me here.
I think the mystery was pretty good.
I'm not going to let them off the hook for pulling out the icicle murder in episode 1.
Okay, well, I mean like, more the broader premise, but go ahead,
icicle, I mean, yes, it's kind of hilarious that it was a holy water icicle, but I was like, they're really pulling out the icicle murder in episode 1, the perfect crime, right?
No murder weapon.
Yeah. So I thought the mystery was, I thought it was kind of dumb, but I was it was on par with what I would expect from, I think.
I mean, Iro did call the twist almost immediately at the beginning of episode 4, but I think that there have been much worse murder mysteries. You know, there was at least several layers of texture to it.
I'm a little more interested in the like monster kitchen sink 1900.
Yes,
like early like Meiji era monster kitchen sink. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like the shtick of Professor Moriarty puts together a Victorian monsters Sinister Six.
That's
kind
good.
of a cool premise,
right? And it's like you can have Holmes and Moriarty and Jack the Ripper and Frankenstein and Dracula and Arsène Lupin.
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Yeah, and the Phantom of the Opera, or you can have all of them running around doing shit. And like, I think that's fun.
I liked how like in episode 2 they kind of casually reference somebody took down Dracula, and then in episode 4 he's basically implies that he killed Dracula.
He punched Dracula so hard his head exploded.
So
and, hey, it's the era without a Belmont, you know, like
so somebody's got to pick up the slack.
Horses are busy.
I like that whole vibe. I kind of like our main crews, kind of how they playfully hate each other.
Right.
And I think there's still potential for fun. Just this pace needs to pick up. I think
this is a rare instance of a work where it would be improved by becoming more quippy, if that makes sense. Because normally I am reaching to turn the Joss Whedon dial down, but I could do with a little bit more of like a little bit
because they have
punchy dialogue.
Like they have their moments where like the maid remembers that she was ordered to punch the guy at the end, and like those kind of things. So, I mean, they're there, but yeah, I agree. A little more would be nice.
It's a little meandering sometimes.
Because, I mean, if you think about it, at this pace, we're going to get, like, 2 more mysteries or something. like they...
Also, I called this out, and, like, I know there is an in-plot explanation for it, but the idea of vampires going to church is extremely
goofy,
funny, and stupid.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's the kind of thing is maybe appealing about this, but... I do kind of wish, because Sherlock Holmes is going to show up, right?
Of course. Moriarty's already here.
I kind of wish they just kind of stayed as like legendary figures in the background or something, and like not part of the story. But yeah, I know we're.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it going both ways.
Like they show up one time, and then like they get called in, they show up, and then everything's already done, and they're like, "Hey, we're here to solve the thing." And then someone's like, "Oh, Holmes already did that.
Yeah,
we're not going to pay you." By the way.
Just in terms of the next episode, I will be incredibly disappointed if Arsène Lupin is not just Lupin III, but like in a Victorian outfit.
Oh, he'll be just, he'll be like the Lupin.
I know.
But it would be hilarious, actually, if it was just Lupin III.
Yeah, don't even change the art style. Right?
It's just Monkey Punch dude over here.
That would be
Victorian GK.
Yeah. I think that can go both, because like the risk there is then if like if Sherlock Holmes only shows up in the background, then it's very easy to feel like they did it just for a pop, or you're cheated or something like that. Because there's definitely a universe where they only mention Sherlock Holmes in passing, and they're like, well, why don't we actually get to see Sherlock Holmes? That would be way more fun. So I think
cocaine.
I think that's a perfectly valid.
I guess it just depends on what they do with him. But yeah,
I mean, he'll be a pretty boy who has like ambiguous.
No, I saw when they announced the show, they just they do like the cast announcements.
Sure.
I think he looks like Sherlock Holmes. I don't think he's a pretty anime.
Well, so he looks like Basil Rathbone then.
Well, it might. You know what? It might be a middle ground. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I don't think they made him like Twinkie.
I mean, look, there is a scale of Sherlock Holmes. At one end is Peter Cushing, and at the other end is Benedict Cumberfunny name, and
yeah, I think
and then Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century is somewhere off and to the right.
Yeah, but I don't think they just made him like young, pretty anime boy. But nevertheless,
maybe the memory of Moriarty the Patriot is still lingering.
And it's not. Yeah, they're not going. Yeah, they're not going that route, I guess. But I don't know. The fight was kind of cool, but also felt kind of out of place with all this. Because I feel like
the fight is also just a delivery method for more dialogue, right? Like the stuff they're saying is way more important than the stuff they're doing.
Also, it was
unlike other shows. This show's about the characters.
Also weird to me that they just let him take his son out back and murder him without questioning it. But
I mean, he had murdered his own mother.
Yeah, I know they tried to kind of like play up that he was, I don't know,
crazy.
Disgruntled,
a bad vampire
or whatever. But that also feels.
It's weird that they're so ambiguous about it that they don't actually show it either. It's weird. The whole thing is kind of weird.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of like, I guess maybe like my feeling is that overall they're doing good, but there's just a lot of little things that are bugging me. Like the overall package seems to be okay.
I think a lot of that can be attributed to the fact that this is being adapted from a proper full-on novel, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of wordy dialogue scenes that a lot of people just stand there talking, and just a lot of like little nagging things holding it back for me.
Adapted for screen, punch up the dialogue.
But I'm still watching it.
It's still one of the most interesting shows going on at the moment, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's go on to talk about the actual best show this season.
Go Hands.
From the master creators at Go Hands.
Yes, the Masterful Cat is depressed again today, which...
Ain't we all, Chief?
Yeah.
They're like, I also dream of being able to abandon my chores and just sleep and eat all day, but you don't see me getting a TV show about it.
Yeah, so... interesting, they spent like the first 3 episodes sort of establishing the back and forth relationship between the main girl and her masterful cat, where he basically gets annoyed, resentful, and frustrated because she's a completely useless person and just makes a mess all the time, and she's just he has to basically run her life outside of work for her. Okay. But then something will happen that reminds them that they really care about each other, even though he is a cat. And so like, the episode 3 is kind of like inconsequential plot wise, but they kind of build on little moments like that. It was episode 4 where I realized, they actually were planting seeds to put together stuff happening in episode 4, where we have a surprisingly elaborate episode where the main girl goes to an aquarium with her hot boss, and they've been like layering pieces to this. Like, for example, so like in like episode 2 or something, he just like casually mentioned, "Oh, hey, on the last Sunday of the month, can you come with me to the aquarium?" And you just completely forget about it until
I need
2
to
episodes
talk to
later.
some guys about my gegeru.
And they keep. So at the aquarium this particular day is a performance by a sea slug themed idol group.
Sure.
Who they're not like they're like a kids idol group, like from a kids show, that kind of idol group, not like but and we kind of see in the background throughout the first couple episodes that the Masterful Cat is a fan of this idol group. He watches it during the day.
He sneaks out to watch the idol group.
Well, yeah, it's kind of so it ends up building up to like in episode 4, the big days here, and the cat's kind of, even though he can't talk, is finding ways to tease her, because it's like,
I thought you said he had dialogue though.
Only in his inner monologue.
Okay,
he can't talk out loud. Yeah. So you hear some of his thoughts, and only at very select moments. Most of the time, he's just totally silent.
Sure.
So he's kind of like teasing her because it's like, oh, you're going on a date with your hot boss or whatever, and so she,
workplace dynamics.
Yeah, and then she goes to meet up with him and finds out that, well, we kind of already know her boss is an asshole because bosses, but he got roped into babysitting his niece, and
she likes this idol,
and he basically pulled her along to help take care of her, take care of the niece, and it's funny because there's the duality of the Masterful Cat does care for his owner, but he's also an asshole cat at heart as well. So like,
you can just say cat, it's fine.
Yes. So it's funny. So in classic, anime fashion, when somebody has a date, he dresses up and tries to follow her to the aquarium.
Of course.
Yep.
And so she thinks that's what's going on, but really, of course, he's there to see the idol group.
Right.
So that's funny in itself, but there's some good jokes because anytime he goes in public is funny because they have to like figure out what do you do when there's a giant cat walking around in public.
Yeah, I was going to say, like,
you just do the tried and true thing of people see the giant cat and then they shrug and say it must be a fursuit, and then they move on. Like,
kind of. There's some of that. They do like a bunch of little things, but they don't really spend a whole lot of time on it. It was just funny because like the little girl's like he's trying to like sneak around and the little girl's talking to the main girl, and she's like, "Oh, you have a cat at home. What's he like?" And he's like, "Oh, he's this big black cat or whatever." And he's like, "Oh, like him over there." And she just points to him while he's like hiding behind a pillar, like
right,
not even like
highly camouflaged.
Yeah, they try to like. So he tries to put on like a hat and human clothes, but he's like, I think I undersold when I said he's human sized. He's more like a bear. Mm-hmm. He's like giant,
sure.
And
yeah.
And he like he does kind of like sneak around to like he goes into like the theater like only when it's like dark, when the lights go down and everything and stuff like that. And some people spot him, but like it's like they can't really see him well enough to figure out what's going on or whatever. So
it's like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah. So, like I'm fine of hand waving some of that stuff, right? Because it's
or
like
Digimon Adventure.
Not really that important, but yeah. So they ended up building up to this sort of like multi-layered joke episode, which ended up being pretty good. And I think they do a good job of like making it endearing without being too sweet.
It's not like saccharine.
Yeah, there's a very fine line to walk there with like showing that these people care about each other, but not like making it like too sappy or whatever.
Right.
And,
yeah. Turning it just into like a glurge fest.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think that's probably the thing they're doing best, where they're walking that line and like you find yourself being endeared to the characters, and there's some pretty good jokes, and it's just like it's a good time all around. So
how's the Gohan's meter?
It's fairly tame. They always have their one shot per episode where they have to spin the camera somewhere.
Yep.
And there is like, I don't think enough people talk about the weird color choices.
No, I mean, believe me, people have talked about the weird color choices.
Like the weird desaturated sort of like whatever. Like there's a lot of that. Yeah. Her boss's hair is really weird. There's little bits of it, but it doesn't really overwhelm.
Dio Brando is there. Oh no, wait, wrong show. Sorry.
Yeah. If only. So it's not distracting from the show. It probably, I don't know.
One of their more subdued efforts.
Would this show be better in the hands of, I don't know, who are the best slice of life people? Kiwani, if they
PA Works.
Shows, PA Works, Sure, but what, a lot of shows would be
Studio
better in their
Dean.
hands. Studio Dean, yes. Acclaimed Studio Dean. So I'm enjoying it a lot. Granted, I will admit it is very much my kind of show. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, but that just means you've got a higher quality filter for that.
I am predisposed to liking something like this, but I think the goals they're trying to accomplish, they're doing a good job with it, even with the occasional Gohan's weirdness.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
when it's minor, you can write it more off as a charming quirk than like a serial assault on your eyes. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think we mentioned last time it kind of makes more sense it's less like egregious in the context of a comedy where you already have like weird art style changes and wacky anime faces and stuff.
Right.
So
yeah.
Sure, why not spin the camera? I guess the difference is it doesn't seem to be any point to spinning the camera, but like if we're gonna compare, I was thinking about like if we were to compare to like something like say Bocchi the Rock, which is like constantly changing,
right, doing stuff as a gag, but
it's always like in service of like some kind of joke, right? Whereas this is like the director said, I want to show that I can spin the camera today, and there's no purpose to it, but. Good show overall. I'm enjoying it.
All right.
There's more that I can say about the next show on the list.
No.
Wait, are you telling me that there's an isekai show that's bad?
So okay, let's talk about Reborn as a vending machine. I now wander the dungeon. I would say it's been it's been up and down for me, and it's currently in a downward trend. Let's put it that way. Iroh, we got there. We made it.
What did he start selling porn?
He turned into a porn magazine machine. It did.
I
happen.
say called it as if there were any other path.
Yeah, like come on.
Yeah.
As soon as I saw he could change to different vending machine types. So Iroh, I'm going to set the stage for you, and you tell me what happened. Okay.
All right. Okay. I'll do my best.
Boxo, the vending machine, as he's nicknamed him, Boxo. He's gotten quite popular.
Okay.
And
he's making lots of money.
A group of bandits capture him with the intent of getting the money out of him, but they can't figure it out.
Right.
So
they just know there's lots of money inside of this box.
Yes, because people keep
putting
money.
Does the crowbar not exist in this universe?
Well,
he's magic.
He's magical, barrier, so he's kind of hard. He has he can create a barrier, and he can do some things that make him a little more.
Okay, but you know what else is magical? A crowbar.
Mm-hmm.
He can do something, and also I don't know what actually happens to the money I don't think the money stays there. It gets anyway.
We're gonna wreck the economy, dude.
Yeah. Not important. These bandits figure out that he's got a lot. He must have a lot of money in him, so they capture him, and they can't figure out how to get it out.
Maybe it's a cryptocurrency based economy.
It's not far off actually, but again, so they can't get it out, and they decide to capture this magical engineer girl who was previously referred to, but we haven't met her.
Okay.
To figure out how to get the money out, and they lock them both in the dungeon of their base.
The titular dungeon.
Can you figure out with that much information, Iroh, how we get to him turning into a porn mag machine? This is
they come in and they're like, we're gonna have some fun with this lady. And yes, he goes, oh no, I can't let this happen because that's bad. Let me turn instead into more easily accessible sexual materials. And that will definitely stop them from having some fun with this lady.
Iroh, I think we have found your future career.
It's almost word for word. I knew you were gonna get it. I didn't have any question, but I just the fact that it's
fucking
true.
Point.
He just has a talent for isekai. That's what it
fuck
is.
Off. Damn it.
So yes, that's exactly.
That doesn't even make sense. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, the only inaccuracy I did not like in that is that when he turns into the porn mag machine, they're not wrapped in brown paper. They're just
wrapped in plastic.
No, they're not wrapped at all. They're just out.
It's ridiculous.
Which is absurd.
Is it of Japanese idols that revere idols?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not like he makes magazines of medieval ladies in
It's just here's your popular AV idol.
Yeah. So
who the hell is this?
Yeah, all the items he sells are from modern Japan. So for example, I kind of skipped episode 3. This all happens in episode 4, which I'll end. I'll just to wrap up that story arc. In the end, of course, their friends come to rescue them, and
of course,
the bandits had some explosive materials in their storehouse, so the building starts collapsing because they get set off, and the Boxo and this engineer girl are trapped underground, and oxygen is running out, and the girl's choking out because there's no oxygen. And
does he just turn into an oxygen vending machine?
Right. Because Boxo is a vending machine otaku, he remembers this obscure oxygen machine from 1965 that actually has a face mask that you can attach
some fucking
that sounds like some like
JoJo like.
No, that sounds like some like American nuclear age bullshit.
Sure.
Like
yes. I was approaching this from like, oh, this is some JoJo level. I read it in a book once that my power, which has command over this vague domain, could totally do this, man. Right?
I turned your hand into a squirrel.
Exactly. Like, yeah, shit like that. Anyway.
Yeah.
Fine.
Whatever, so, yeah, so that was episode 4. I kind of skipped episode 3 because it was just like very, very short little vignettes of people buying stuff. Like, maybe 5 minutes tops.
If you're resorting to like your mini story episode in episode 3, that's not a great sign.
Including one really weird one where the bear in the hat and the coat, who is apparently everyone's boss.
I mean, wouldn't you listen to what a bear in a hat and a coat had
and he has glasses too, so he's smart. He's smart.
Of course.
Does he like marmalade sandwiches?
Paddington, no.
Haven't seen that yet, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Is Paddington Bear an isekai?
Let's not talk about this.
These are questions I don't want to answer. So he approaches Boxo to have a discreet conversation because he is concerned with all the new adventurers coming through about everyone's quote-unquote hygiene. And
of course.
Boxo's like, yeah, I get what you're saying, bro. And he turns into a condom machine. And the
dude goes like, what the hell are these?
Yeah, well, at first they're confused, but they because again, everything is from modern Japan, so it's like in Japanese, so they can't read it. So they have to like open up the condom, and there's like instructions, like a visual diagram or something of how that all works. And
okay,
that's what they say, and they're like, oh yes. And I should point out, it's not really a joke. They're just like, yes, now we have
prophylactics.
We now have prophylactics. Thank you, Boxo. And like, there was no joke or anything. It was just like it was a very serious. They weren't even like trying to make it like. But
you see, the joke is condoms. Ha ha ha.
But they weren't even like going for that. Like the horny. Oh, we're talking about sex. Thing. It was just like, yes, I can make condoms, and it was very weird.
That's just more of the whole isekai thing of and I'm bringing modern conveniences to these medieval rubes.
I mean, let's leave aside that the concept of prophylactics has existed since before the birth of Christ.
But, yes, but
it's like how isekai is like, let me tell you about crop rotation or whatever. It's like people figured that shit out because they had to.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. And I don't know if the implication was that they didn't understand the concept of prophylactic. What the hell are we even talking about? Let's move on.
Tell me.
Okay, let me tell you my big problem with this show. I've not seen any episode of it, but whenever anybody mentions the title, it makes me think of that episode where Homer gets his hand stuck in the vending machine and then he's at Lisa's wedding and goes, free candy and sodas for all. That would be a much better show than this.
I'm not saying. I feel like I'm still watching it because like I just want to see what stupid thing they do, but like I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know if
that's the lie you have to tell yourself to get through the day. Just
go. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how I feel next week.
Like, the thing is, like, I understand where you're coming from, and like that exact reason is why I like don't even give these shows one episode, right?
Because you don't want to commit. You don't want to get sucked in.
No, it's like straight up. It's like,
I mean, these things are the entertainment equivalent of junk food,
right? It's like the ideological, like, hard lines I have to take, right?
I understand if this is divisive, but in episode 2, when they did the Mentos and Cola thing, and that was the stupidest thing I've seen in probably all year, I was like, I kind of want to see what else they're going to do for, like, what dumb things can we do with the vending machine?
Can they top Coke and Mentos? Like,
I don't know. Well,
maybe if he turns into a vending machine for like kittens with can has cheeseburger on them.
They haven't been able to top that. I mean, he's done other things, like when the bandits are harassing him, he looks at his list of worst selling drinks and like gives them all the worst drink he has on his list to make them all like vomit. It's like some terrible sports drink or something. But I don't know, man.
I guess
that's all I got.
This just seems like a joke that would struggle to sustain one episode, let alone a.
I got nothing else, man. The important thing is I wanted you to know, Iro, that we got there with the porn mags.
Where else were we gonna go? Right? Yeah. I don't know. Just fucking.
You should enter one of those light novel writing.
No, God. I feel like fucking.
Use a fake name. We'll
I can't bring up Western television right now.
Yeah.
Ugh.
All right.
Fucking yeah.
Let's wrap things up and talk about Zom 100 Bucket List of the Dead.
Great.
And I have
I have a pretty big problem with this show.
Okay. Well, let me start with.
Okay.
Just stay with me on this this story here of how I feel. Yep. But when all the Twitter stuff was going down last week, I finally.
What do you mean last week?
It's
still going down.
The most recent, when they announced the X thing and all that, which was only a week ago.
I mean, look, like there is so much shit happening every day.
Yeah. So when I broke down and was checking out Threads, as you guys heard we were talking about, and Threads is awful, but it was even worse because this was a couple days prior to them surprise announcing releasing the reverse chronological timeline. So at that point, you were only getting the threads that were like the random algorithm generated, whoever's the most popular influencer messages, and probably like 80% of those were like the text screenshot, positivity messages of so
it's a Facebook feed then.
Yeah,
the one from Vegas,
or like this is literally tied to Instagram, right? But so it's like the ones I'm talking about. Where it's like don't focus on the negative; it's a waste of time, or you don't need this type of person in your life, or whatever. Those messages. Mm-hmm.
You see, on Facebook, I started like blocking all of those accounts until eventually it just started feeding me right-wing propaganda.
Yeah, that's the next phase, right? Well, I feel like those messages are the depth of Zom 100's rating.
Kind of, yeah.
That's kind of like the whole vibe I get from Zom 100, and I kind of hate it. And you guys are totally caught up with it?
Did you watched episode 3?
3,
yeah. 4 out yet?
I don't think 4 is out as of
recording. Yeah, so we're up to date then.
The best friend character has been introduced.
Yes, that was episode 3, and I don't know, just like, and it's not like I didn't see this coming from episode 1 ever since the like, the confessing to his the office lady who got turned into the zombie. Yeah. Like it's such like a brain dead sort of, I don't know, patronizing sort of positivity to it that I really hate.
Positivity.
And I don't know. It feels like it should be better than it is, and
on a certain level I appreciate how like goofily naive it is, but it does make the whole thing kind of extremely shallow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
I think we were saying when we were watching it, because the ED sequence is like the characters going on, it's like having fun on some kind of road trip or whatever,
road tripping across Japan.
And it's like this. I think we were saying, or Akugues was saying, and I was agreeing with him, that like I would be more into this show if it was just these people are leading lives where they're dissatisfied with their jobs and their place in society, and so they all quit their jobs and go on a road trip, like to enjoy life for a bit,
right,
without this whole zombie thing. Which, and I mean, it's intentional, if hackneyed commentary, that the only way that you could possibly get time off to, or possibly find to do these sort of things as if everything ended, man. But
I mean, it doesn't help. It doesn't help that the zombie genre is a genre that almost from the very immediate beginning has had like a very close tie with arch socio-political commentary, right? Like a lot of the great zombie films are also commentaries on capitalism. On
We Are the Walking Dead.
Yeah, stuff like Dawn of the Dead and stuff like that. Right?
And I'm fine with that being in the background because they kind of made that point already in like the beginning. But
the thing I'm saying is that like you need to bring your A game on this stuff, and there's nothing here which we haven't. It's very shallow.
Like if you're going to depict, and I think what we're seeing in the ED, I'm assuming once we get the final party member next episode. Maybe that's where we're headed.
Z Madonna with Z big boobies.
Your big boob blonde lady who want to be Japanese samurai.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Once we get the party together, maybe it'll be more fun. But like, I don't know. Like, if they're going for the people finding joy in the apocalypse sort of thing. There is sort of like
you need a way more nihilistic edge on that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there is still like I guess a balance and a level of nuance you need for that to be effective.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about just last season with Heavenly Delusion.
Yeah.
Like a lot of my favorite moments of that show were people, finding ways to enjoy themselves, even though the world is. Everything is gone.
One of the things I appreciated about Heavenly Delusion is that it shows like an apocalypse is not necessarily the end. Like society will endure, just in like different ways and shapes and manifestations.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it is a world that has clearly gotten back on its feet. It's just very different.
And they did it by just kind of depicting it, whereas this is like we have Meathead shonen protagonist who's gonna
scream the moral at you,
the moral of the story at you, and bash his way through everything. Like when he calls his friend, like, "Yeah, I'm on my way," and there's no like, there's zombies. You got to have you can't just like, and because I guess their way to hand wave it all is they used to play rugby, right? Like, so so he can run and jump,
barrel
good.
through shit,
take all his clothes.
Yeah, and it just
I
there's
don't
there's
think
like literally no substance to this whatsoever, and without the substance, it's like I don't think there's enough style either. Like there's style, but it's like not as much as you would think.
I also just don't think it's very funny. Like it is a classic anime comedy in that mildly amusing things happen, but there aren't really jokes per se. Like there's no set up punchline. It's just, oh, this thing happened. He locked up the zombie because he was in a BDSM room. Isn't that funny? And I'm like, well, no, not really.
Yeah.
Anyway, returning to my big problem with this show. My big problem with this show is that the main character looks way too much like Deku, and so that just throws me way off of balance.
Yeah, he kind of does, huh?
But also, it's kind of devoid of things. It's not funny enough to be a comedy. It's not actiony enough to be an action show. It's not really like deep enough to be a character drama. It's sort of got an interesting idea and a wing and a prayer, right?
It's like it's just happening. Just stuff happens. Like the writing is like completely deadpan. Like
but not in the funny way.
But not in a funny way. But just in a like I'm going to say exactly what is happening and exactly what I'm thinking, and there's just nothing, no meat on the bone here. For me, I don't know.
That's what people like these days. That's why everyone quotes Garth Marenghi's Dark Place all the time, completely unironically.
Well, I actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I think this was when for some reason, this is on both Crunchyroll and Netflix, and it was like top 10 on Netflix when it first came out. I don't know if that's the case. Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, because like people are easily seduced, and this thing looked very flashy.
Yeah, the first episode,
people like zombie things.
The first episode is very striking. Like,
yeah,
I was feeling like I had my reservations on the first episode, but I was feeling like somewhat hopeful, and I don't feel like the next 2 episodes did them any favors.
and I do think like the paint splash stuff is like the one truly unique signifier this show has, like the splashes of like red and yellow and blue and like all the bright primary colored stuff, like, rather than like blood.
That's
and
like
decay.
your visual identifier to make this look different than other zombie shows. But I don't know.
But yeah, it's just not
infusing. Like, you know, I just don't care about what's going on.
Yep.
Well, it's a pity.
On that high note,
yeah, this has been a real
anime is great, everybody.
Yeah, we'll see. See what we're still watching. Some of these shows are just like just doing enough for me to keep watching them, and I'm like, I should really just raise my standards. And
look, man, if you raised your standards, then we wouldn't be running an anime blog in the first place.
We would have shut down in 2013.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I suppose that's true, but all right. Well, that's a problem for next episode. Indeed. Let's wrap this one up and get to our housekeeping.
Yeah.
You can check us out at theglorioblog.com, where, once again, if you want to read any of our other first looks for the shows that we watched, those are up there.
Hopefully by the time you hear this, but if not, within the next few days, I'll have that Shin Kamen Rider review up, and, I'll talk a bit more about the kind of things that I mentioned on here there as well.
Yeah. So keep an eye out for that. You can follow us on X.
Yeah, X as in the past, EX.
At the GLORIO blog, although
Twitter. Follow us on Twitter.
Anytime anybody says X, I think about the soundbite that plays when you use a super move in X-Men Children of the Atom.
Oh,
X! Wow. Yeah. That X. Yeah. I just think about that every time.
That is pretty
good.
Continue. Yeah, so you can follow us there if you want. Although
behold, Optic Blast.
they have broken every feature that was useful to us with WordPress, so not a lot there to see at the moment. But hey, it's there still, and I guess same with co-host. I haven't posted anything there recently, but that's at GLORIO. I guess we'll see who wins the Blue Sky versus Threads war for where else we might end up. We'll keep everyone
whoever
posted.
Wins, we lose.
Yeah, because they those both have their own problems, which we're not going to get into, but we're always at theglorioblog.com though. Yep. So, and you can always follow the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, Stitcher, and of course YouTube, where you can like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell, all those good things, and tell your friends, tell your enemies, and we'll catch everybody next time.